Hello, algebra students, and welcome back to another video lesson as we start a new topic today called the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. Can we solve quadratic equations using this quadratic formula? I think this is a rather cool section just because what I'm going to show you works with almost every type of quadratic problem we work with. And so before we get there, I want you to take a look at these four examples. Which one of them is in the form of a quadratic equation? Is it A, is it B, is it C, or is it D? Which one is quadratic? Well, I hope after our last few lessons you recognized that C is our quadratic. All right, that is our quadratic. Now before we forget, and I'll just explain the other ones, y equals 5x minus 9 is linear. That looks like y equals mx plus b. Letter B is exponential because I've got an x for an exponent. So that's exponential. And y equals 11, believe it or not, is also linear. It's a straight line left to right. And so the quadratic one was y equals 3x squared minus 8x. This one is definitely different than all of the other ones because it has two different x values, an x squared and the x. So remember, all quadratic equations are of that form, ax squared plus bx plus c. They have those two different x values. Now we're going to need to definitely take some notes. It's really, really important that we look at taking notes on the quadratic formula. As I said, quadratic equations are always y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And the quadratic formula really helps us solve all of those types of equations that have the x squared and the x in them. So something that looks like 2x squared plus 6x minus 8. That's a quadratic, and we can use this formula. Now, there's a couple of rules that we need to know before we introduce you to the quadratic formula. It only works if our equation equals 0. So we must make sure that our equation equals 0. Second, you need to be able to identify the a, the b, and the c values. Right, so we talk about writing them in a very specific order. A goes in front of the x squared, B goes in front of the x, and C stands for constant. It's by itself. So know those specific orders because sometimes we might have to shuffle things around a little bit. Now here's where these notes become really, really, really important. It's a quadratic formula. It's a long, complicated formula, but it works. So I'm on the packet page number 6. This formula is used to solve quadratic equations. So it only works for quadratic equations that are set equal to 0. We just mentioned that. The equation must be in what we call descending. So ax squared, then bx, and then c. And again, it has to be set equal to 0. If it's not set equal to 0, it's not going to work. All right, so if I have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then the quadratic formula is under here. A couple of things, as you can see, I've got a big square root symbol, and it's a partly fraction. There it is. The quadratic formula is that piece of information right there. I can find the answers, the roots, the x-intercepts. I can find the solutions by saying that x equals the opposite of b, or negative b, plus or minus the square root of this whole thing, b squared minus 4 times a times c, and that all is being divided by 2a. Pause the video here and make sure you have this copied down correctly. Now, how does this work? So we're going to go to the next slide and look at an example. And there's 3 of them on here. And don't worry, we're going to go one at a time, and I'm going to help you with letter A, and then we'll slowly let you work on B and C. So as you remember, and I'm going to go back 2 slides. First thing, is the equation equal to 0? That's the first thing we always want to check. Second, what is A, B, and C? Are they in the right order? And so here's our first example, letter A. I would write this down. I have a couple of examples for you to go back and look at. A says 0 equals 3x squared plus 5x minus 6. Number 1, is it set equal to 0? Yes. Number 2, is it in descending order? The ax squared, bx, and c, and it certainly is. So to use that quadratic formula, we need to know what is the a value, the b value, the c value. Well, a, we said, comes in front of the x squared, so it's 3. The b value is in front of the x, so it's 5. And the c value is the one all by itself. And we got to use the symbol out in front, so the c value here is -6. So I'm just working right now on pulling that information out so that now I can plug it in here. The opposite of b, the negative b. So in this case, because b is 5, I use -5 in the quadratic formula. And then it's plus or minus. And then it's going to be the square root of my b value squared. So 5 squared minus 4 times the a value times the c value. And that entire piece is being divided by 2 times a, twice a, which is 2 times 3 for this problem. And then we're going to learn eventually how we can go to decimals, or how we can do a lot of that by hand to solve. That's all we're doing for right now, though, on this slide. All right, so let's try that with letter B. Is the equation set equal to 0? Yep. Is it in descending order? Ax squared, bx, and c? It is. All right, so now I need you to tell me, what is the a value? -2. Remember, it's in front of the x squared, so -2. What is the b value? This is going to be -5. Why? Because that's what's in front of the x, and we got to take that subtraction sign. So -5. What is the c value? 8. 8. And so now we can use all of that to plug it back into here. -b, the opposite. So if it's -5 here, I use +5 plus or minus the square root b squared. Notice I'm going to put it in parentheses when it's a negative number. -5 squared minus 4 times the a value times that c value. All of that's under the square root over 2 times a. Over 2 times a. All right, pause the video here and try and use that process for letter C. However, before you do that, we got to look at letter C carefully. Is it set equal to 0? Yes. Is it in descending order? No. So let's just change it to the correct order. +x squared plus 4x minus 8. Now, that's not a necessary step, but it's helpful to identify the a, the b, and the c. Now pause it, find the a, the b, the c, and then set it up. All right, hopefully you noticed that a is 1, b is 4, c is -8. Again, if there's not a number in front of x squared or even in front of the x, it's a 1. All right, let's plug it in. The opposite of b, so -4. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, or 4 squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over twice a, all over 2 times a, which is 1. 2 times 1. So that's the setup process. That's how we can set these up so that we're going to be able to successfully solve them. All right. If you got questions on that part, you got to make sure you reach out, because now we're going to look at, well, how do I solve these once I've got them set up? Okay. Yes, we can use Desmos to help us calculate these on most of them, on some, but we need to know how to type them in and how to round our answers. So we're going to go back and look here at example A. and we're going to round our answers to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to grab this information right there. And that was what we found for this example A. And so what we need to do is we're going to have to go over to Desmos and actually punch that into their calculator. So Desmos and their calculator. The first thing we want to do inside of Desmos is either hit the division symbol or on your computer keypad, it's the question mark, that little dash, because it turns it into a fraction for us. And then I'm going to go -5 plus, I'm going to start out with the plus one, okay? Even though, let me go back, even though we have plus minus, we're going to type this in twice. Once using the plus sign, and then once using the subtraction sign. -5 plus, now I got to use this square root button, 5 squared minus 4 times the a value, which was 3, times the c value, which was -6. And then I'm going to click down here underneath and do 2 times my a value, which was 3. And you'll notice there is our answer that we have to make sure that we round. So I'm going to just copy that over here quick and paste it. All right, that was using the plus sign. Now watch what happens. Because we have to solve it twice, I'm just going to change the only thing that needs to be changed from addition, going to delete it, and type in subtraction, and notice everything else stays the same. So there is our second answer. Copy that, and let's go put it over here and make sure that we round our answers to the nearest hundredth, 2 decimal places. So we could say x equals 0.81, or, so that was this one, 0.81, or negative 2.47. So the key is making sure that you plug them in correctly into Desmos. Let's take a look at example B. All right, there was example B. I'm going to go grab the formula that we had for example B. Right here, copy it over. Oops, I don't want to go to Desmos yet. We got to get it onto the right slide. I want you to pause the video here and try to type that into Desmos. When we come back to our video, I'm going to have the addition one plugged into Desmos, and let's see if we get the same answer. All right, welcome back. I'm in Desmos now. Hopefully this is what you had typed in, 5 plus the square root symbol. Now, because we're squaring a negative, I've got to make sure that only that one in parentheses, so -5 squared minus 4 times -2 times 8 all over 2 times -2, and that gave us one of our answers. So let's copy that, and let's go put it over here so we can look at it in a second. So that was the adding answer. Now we've got to check the subtracting answer. I'm going to go back over here and just delete the addition sign and change it with subtraction. And you'll see that it indeed changed our answer. So the challenge, I believe, is learning how to type that into Desmos. So if you need more practice or help on that, please make sure that you do indeed reach out. We need to round to the nearest hundredth again. So it's -3.608. The 8 makes that 0 become a 1. Or 1.108 makes it 1.11. X could equal either of those if we've rounded correctly. So you do have the ability in quite a few of these to use Desmos to help you solve. However, there are going to be some where we ask you to do it with no calculator or no Desmos allowed. Same process, right? What is A from this problem? A 1. What is B? That's 8. And what is C? That would be 7. So I'm going to plug it in there. The opposite of B plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 8 squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over twice a, all over 2 times 1. So here's my challenge to you. Try to solve that right now by pausing the video and seeing what you get. When we do these, we have to perform the top and the bottom separately, and we actually have to figure out what's underneath this square root first. We got to figure out that part first. 8 squared is 64 minus 4 times 1 times 7, that's 28, minus 28 all over 2. Now we got to still figure out what's underneath that square root. Minus 8 plus or minus the square root of 36 all over 2. Do I know what that square root of 36 is? I hope we do. That's 6, so negative 8 plus or minus 6 all over 2. And now this is where we solve twice. Okay, so I'm going to go over here. Negative 8 plus the 6 divided by 2, or negative 8 minus the 6 divided by 2. Negative 8 plus 6 would give me negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. Negative 8 minus 6 is negative 14, but negative 14 over 2 is negative 7. So we could say that x equals negative 1 or negative 7. So a lot of steps, but the quadratic formula can be very useful and helpful. If you have questions or you need some extra help, please make sure that you reach out. Otherwise, until next time, everyone, stay safe.